Hey, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Frank About Health. It is now Thursday, August 14th, 2025. This is part two of my special guest from the end of July, Mr. John Beyer. If you remember, we had our technical challenges that day, but he's got a load of music out there that I want you guys to hear. I also wanted to go more in depth into his book, which is called Live a Little Better. And basically, we want to be able to consider it not a sequel, but a redo in order to get full John Beyer. Because if you remember, he was on my phone device, audio only, then he was on WhatsApp. But now we have him in living color. And we're going to talk about another aspect of his family life in his stages of sobriety that were not covered at all. So it makes sense to have a sequel because he's got a lot to say. Now, that all being said, I will issue my disclaimer. This is not the views of Frank About Health or talkradio.nyc, but they are obviously the views of John Beyer covered in his book. If you remember from the first episode in July, we had discussed about how he had gone through a life of alcoholism, and it wasn't until he had met the love of his life and, of course, was able to have children and get through sobriety and use his music as a creative outlet while also at the same time facing ongoing challenges in building his business, Men on the Move. So, obviously, this is an example of a story when you face distraction or disruption. What do you do about it? And this man certainly has. So, as far as the book is concerned, we already covered about the alcoholism being a burden in how he had dealt with his parents and his sisters. We also talked about how he got involved in Alcoholics Anonymous and also did what he could to be able to pick up the pieces of his life when he was seeing an example of one benefactor that gave him $2. And what he did with that was bought himself a slice of pizza and realized not only is there value in the money as being validated, but there's value in using your own inner resources to make things grow from nothing. And that's what he's done. How's that for a recap, John? You have to unmute yourself first.
Good job.
All right, cool. Did I leave anything out? I think even after we did the show, you'd mentioned something about almost being part of a gang that you wanted to emphasize. Did you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's in my book, Live a Little Better. There was there was a guy that he was a big tough guy. He was huge, monster sized guy. And I mean, I'm still even afraid to mention his name. I won't.
Correct.
But he was a bad guy. He was a bad dude. And he intimidated you. He said, if you don't do what I tell you to do, I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to really hurt you. And you did what he told you to do. And we did some bad things, that are detailed in my book. I admitted to some crimes that I committed when I was in my mid early teens. Uh, and
Mm.
and weapons were involved. And to this day, I feel terrible about it. I can't believe it. I could have gone down that road so easily. And just one day he disappeared. I don't know what happened to him. He was just gone from the neighborhood. He
Mm.
was a ringleader, and everybody else just fell by the wayside. And I don't know if he went to prison or what happened to him. He was older than us. He was about 20 years old. And like I said, this monster guy, and he was very intimidating, and he was forced us to do some really bad stuff, which I go into a little detail in my book.
Now, is the aspect of it being in your book showing how, when you were under the mercy of alcoholism, that you were just led to do things that someone in recovery would not do, or was it you constantly feeling bullied and not knowing the right choices to make for yourself?
It showed the lack of supervision that I was having from my parents because I was 13, 14 years old at the time. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't a daily drinker or anything like that at the time.
Okay.
So it wasn't my alcoholism. It was more my parents' alcoholism and the neglect where I could, just be out till 1 o'clock in the morning and nobody even knew it at the age of 13 years old. So
Incredible.
yeah, crazy, crazy stuff. But he made us ride the top of the elevators and left rack and stop the elevators with people in them down below. He made it. It was pretty bad stuff. It was, yeah, yeah. It's very scary.
So, what happened to you during that time as a kid? Were you in school or were you homeless or what was your life like?
Well, it was very interesting. That was a point in my life where I was in, I was actually in the accelerated classes in sixth and seventh grade. I was supposed to skip the eighth grade.
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing that when you're 13 years old. And
Right.
this is around that time. And my attitude was, they told me that they told me that if I didn't pass math, because I started to do a little bit lousy in math, that I wouldn't be able to skip. And I never forget this. This is a profound turning point in my life. They
Mm-hmm.
said, if you don't pass math, you're not going to be able to skip. And I wound up failing math. My home life was, there was no accountability. There was no one there. My dad had moved out years ago. My sisters had already moved out, and my mom was just a drunk all the time. And
Mm.
I fail math, and then the teacher calls me in. And he tells me the counselor calls me in and says, "I'm very disappointed." He says, "And I'm making up your schedule for next year." And he makes up the schedule for next year, and he's putting me for eighth grade, so I'm not skipping, so I'm staying now.
Mm.
And he says, "Yeah, I'm putting you, back in the accelerated classes." And this is where we talk about the disease of the attitudes. This is what I said to him. I said, "You're not putting me in the accelerated class. Why should I work so hard if it's not going to mean anything?" And I made him take me out of the accelerated classes, except for English. I always like to write. And
Right.
I kept the English accelerated classes. And I remember going to science and social studies and the rest of the classes, of course, math too, because I was not a great math student. Um, the following year and feeling like I didn't belong there, feeling that I wasn't challenging myself and it was boring because those classes weren't, I could have done something a little bit tougher there. But my attitude was, screw it,
Huh.
and from there I had a screw it attitude. I really did. And that changed a lot of different things for me. And then of
So,
course
did you end up dropping out?
I didn't drop out. I was always singing. I was always singing. So I was in the chorus, and the chorus teacher talked me into um, applying to the High School of Music and Art for singing. And I got into that high school for singing.
Mm.
I sang on a clear day, and raindrops keep falling on my head. And what happened after that is I get in, and it was four trains. It was into Harlem. None of my friends were going there. I didn't like the commute, and I felt alone. And I only went for a few months. And then I transferred. I transferred to my local high school, John Brown High School in Flushing. And I
Wow.
finally moved out of Lefrak in 75, late 75. And we moved to Flushing, and John Bound was my high school. And I go in the middle of the year, and I hardly know anybody there. I don't know anybody. Only a few of my friends had gone to that school because a lot of people were moving out of Left Rack and moving into different directions because the neighborhood really did change. And I felt lost. I didn't know anybody. And I
Huh.
wound up skipping. I cut every day. I cut every day. I went from, and I got 46s and 56s. Whenever you get into class ended in a six, it means you just were delinquent. And my what occurred there is the irony is that here there was this kid who was supposed to be skipping, and then a
Hmm.
year and a half later, he was becoming a high school dropout. It was just
Wow.
overnight. My attitude was F it. I didn't care. Yeah, and my older sister Denise saw what was happening. She caught wind of it. She was like 18 at 19 at the time, and she came
Hmm.
and tried to talk to me, and I didn't hear much. And she managed to get to my father, and my father showed up, and I think I liked the attention, which is a rare thing. And he
Right.
kind of chased me down the block. I remember this. I was cutting class, and he found me, and uh, and I went back to school there. And he told me, I had a counselor at school who said to me, "What makes you think we're willing to take you back?" And I remember that worked on me. That really worked
Wow.
on me. Huh? What do you mean? They always want to take you back in school. And my dad said to me, uh, I'll pay for your summer school if you have to go to summer school in order to graduate, and I'll pay for it, which was unbelievable. And I was stunned that he did
Mm,
that. He did show up and managed to do that. And he was all screwed up. He was drinking his ass off too. But he did come up with the money for that. And I went back there and I got my act together and I started getting 80s and 90s in school. And on my 17th birthday, as in my book, a good buddy, I was on the basketball team. I was a decent athlete. I was on the swimming team. I was a pretty good swimmer. And my buddy introduced me to this girl named Amy on my 17th birthday on the steps of my high school.
there
And
she is.
we'll be married 38 years now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. So then, I mean, it sounds like that you were rebelling and
Oh,
you were also
you
just trying to
think?
do, yeah, right. But I'm not sensing, unless maybe I didn't get to the part that we talked about a couple Thursdays ago, where you yourself were going through binge drinking and alcoholism. Did that
Yes.
happen? That
When
happened
I
after high school?
No, there were episodes. There were episodes in my high school years. There were. It wasn't every day, but when I drank, I still drank differently. I drank more. It was never enough. So I would get drunk. And yeah, there were episodes there. I remember going through the Midtown Tunnel, and those yellow rubbery spike things. I was
Hmm.
hitting them. I was drunk going into the city to go out. I was already drunk, and I'm
Mm,
hitting them against my car. And I get out of my car, and there's yellow marks on them because there were those yellow dividers that divide the lanes in the Midtown Tunnel. And then I
wow.
went out and partied. And I remember I was borrowing $3 from this one and $5 from that one, $5 without the other ones knowing, so I could get money to drink. Yeah, and
Incredible.
that was about 17, 18 years old. So yeah, it was bad.
Well, so then I guess if anything, I mean, you obviously found the love of your life, and according to the dedication in your book, she obviously grounded you as you move forward through your life. But it doesn't sound like to me that your, let's call it illness, even though alcoholism is technically regarded as an
Mhm.
illness, it doesn't sound like that was your major illness. It was more mental health oriented or a sense of identity and purpose. Would that be fair to say?
I was in pain. I was undernourished as a child. I was in pain.
Mm-hmm.
Children learn what they live, and I had all the genetics and the environmental factors that go into becoming an alcoholic. I had felt less than. Um,
Mm,
I had no direction and focus, no accountability.
mm.
Where was I going to go? Was lost as a lamb. Which is a lyric to one of the lines in the song from the Valley of the Dolls,
You
which
just
is
said
about
the magic
addiction.
word about music because you did say where were you going to go, but throughout the rest of the show, we're going to show where you've been, where you went, and what you're doing now going forward. So everybody, please stay tuned right here on Frank About Health on talkradio.nyc and on our social media channels, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We'll be back in a few.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. I'm here with my guest, John Beyer. We were just talking in segment one about how this sequel to the episode we did on, I think it was July 24th, basically showed how he was able to collaborate with the love of his life as well as with understanding how much pain he was in, especially while binge drinking and I guess dealing with alcoholism, but obviously he needed to be anchored down, probably because of the neglect he felt as a child, and of course the way that his father supported him through that summer school story is one for the books. I gather you did not go to college, unless I'm wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but you did make something bigger, Men on the Move. I would like you to share with the audience after you unmute what Men on the Move is and what it's a reflection of in terms of your constant striving for maintaining sobriety, as well as how you were able to further succeed and engage with building a family after you married Amy, as well as just tell us more about what we didn't get a chance to talk about last time.
Sure. So I went, actually did go to college. All of my
Forgive
girlfriend
me.
at the time and all of them, I fell in with the goody two shoes now. And
Okay.
was very malleable at very impressionable. And I got into Stony Brook University on a economically challenged program because we were poor as dirt. And and uh, and I wrote a good essay, and I get in, and all I did was party my ass off there. So I went for 2.5 years, and I have 30 some odd college credits, and it was insanity and mayhem, and I punched showcases, got glass on my knuckles, had car accidents, was sued for $2.9 million in 1979. Crazy, crazy stuff. This is when I was at my pretty much at my worst. It was very bad. I was drinking very alcoholically then. So I was a
Ah.
college dropout. And I wound up getting bartending jobs at the bar my mother worked in and at the bar my father worked in. And what I liked about that, it was empowering. I made a lot of money. I made a lot
Mm.
of money in those bars. I worked very hard. I worked 6 nights a week. And much of my early 20s are a blur. It was car accidents and insanity and waking up with strangers and just crazy stuff, the typical alcoholic stuff. Till one
Wow.
day I came to, the clock said six o'clock, and
Hmm.
I didn't know if it was AM or PM. I looked outside the window, the sky was a medium blue, and I could not tell if it was AM or PM. And
Huh.
you know, uh, that doesn't happen to somebody who doesn't have a drinking problem. And I
Where
went,
was Amy at this point? Because I thought you met her in high school.
we were seeing each other off and on. She was ready to get out of this relationship. We went off and on. It was, typical stuff like that because, I could not be relied upon. And
Mm.
I actually called her up and I said to her, I'm going to get help. And I went to my first meeting that night. Went to
Was
my,
that the last time you ever drank?
it was March 31st, 1986, and I haven't had a drink since.
Awesome. You're almost at your 40th anniversary. What do they call it? Your 40th anniversary or 40th birthday?
I like anniversary better. I don't,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's cool.
So
That's
yeah, so I haven't drank. So yeah, so then I met a guy in the one of the bars. His name is John. This story is in the book, and I
hmm
knew him fairly well from there. And he had recently gotten out of prison,
hmm
and he had a van and was moving furniture. And he asked me to help him and I didn't have a job at the time, so I said yes. And then I wound up getting sober. And he said to me, you should get your own, you're a smart guy, you should get your own company and your own truck, and we'll work together and we'll book jobs together. And I did. I started my own company in actually in 1985, September of 85. So it's 40 years that I'm in business. And um, as soon as I got sober, it exploded. All I did was work and go to meetings. And in my book, when I wrote the draft, I kept saying I worked like a maniac. I worked like a maniac. I repeated the term so many times that when we went to the edit, I had to remove some of them because it was too repetitive. But all I did was work, and I built quite a foundation of for my company. The phone kept ringing, and
Yes,
of a foundation for my program, which was more important.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And so when you were now finding traction, literally,
yeah.
were you then seeing Amy more and more
Oh
to
yeah, I was sober 10 months and I got engaged. They tell you no major decisions in the first year. I went to my sponsor and said, "Listen, I know I don't have a year, but I think I want to get engaged." He said, "She's the right one for you. Get engaged." That's what he said. My sponsor, Kevin. I still see and speak to him all the time.
That
And
is cool.
yeah, and I proposed to her and we got married in a year later, 1987.
Well,
Yeah.
it just sounds like to me that I guess with all of the turbulence that you went through, and of course the alcoholism, your basic skill sets, like your love of writing, your entrepreneurial spirit, at the same time, when you find the love of your life, I'm sure it just changes you for the better. So it sounds like that you were able to make up for the family that you were neglected by building your own and really being committed
Yes.
to that to keep grounded from preventing the recovery from being disrupted,
Well, it's
right?
really funny. Yeah, you used the word grounded a few times.
Okay.
In our company, in Men on the Move, I'm the CEO, and my wife I call my controller with and without the P.
Yes, you
She
mentioned that.
hates that moniker, but that's what it is. So no, she is the grounding. She is a grounding force in my life. Yeah, she gave us a lot of structure and protocols and professionalism because she had worked in offices and stuff, and we grew. We grew a truck a year, and then we were married. Oh, how many years? 3, 4 years. Then we had our first kid. Lauren was born, beautiful little girl, and she's terrific. And then a couple of years, 20 months later, my son was born. Uh,
Yes.
uh, Gregory. Gregory was born.
Yes.
And unfortunately, on his just after his second birthday, he was diagnosed with autism.
And that we're going to save for the third section of the show because that's the one piece of the last show we didn't even cover. But I know that you are involved not just with Alcoholics Anonymous, but with Autism Speaks. And at the same time, I'm really getting to the point where I'm interested to understand how your love of music and creating music went hand in hand with your writing, which hence created Live a Better Life. You know? So, and it's available on Amazon Kindle at 50% off the price it's listed. All right. So, that being said, what I'm trying to figure out though is that when did all the music and the writing come out while you're living this work like a maniac
Well,
lifestyle?
what it was very interesting is that I did not do a lot of the music. All I did, I write about alcoholism and recovery run through the entire book. But the music, which also does run through the entire book because I use it to start each chapter off with giving you a sense of with lyrics from a song, which give you
Yeah.
a sense of what the chapter is going to be about. But I really I sang at some people's weddings. I sang a song here and a song there. I listened to music intently. I was not pursuing my music passion and interest at any real level for many, many years. Many,
Hmm.
many years. It really started much, much later, and it only really got serious about 7 years ago, 7.5 years ago, in my 50s.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. I'll
Well, when
explain
it comes
that
to
to you.
music, I always say better late than never.
Oh, definitely. I'm enjoying it. I can't get over how much I'm enjoying it. It's my avocation, I guess, but I'm having a blast with it.
And it's a substitute for what you were doing elsewise or 40 years earlier
Yes,
in terms of
and
instead of berating yourself, so to speak, you're expressing yourself and you're
yes.
giving back to others.
Just what the program teaches you, that you have to, in order to keep it, you have to give it away. And I want to share my experience, my strength and hope, which is a common thing that we say all the time in the program. I want to
Yes.
share everything that I have in me, that everything I've been through in life, good, bad, or indifferent, the autism challenges and successes, and the alcoholism challenges and successes, and health, which is still an ongoing health stuff going on. But the music is, it's got its own healing factor to it. You know, it really does. And it's a great escape. You know, when I was a
Yes.
kid, I used to listen to the music out on the terrace in Lefrak City to get away from the insanity in the apartment, the fighting or the strangers in the house, or you know, the drunkenness, the filth, just and now it's just a much healthier escape.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
yeah,
And I guess it's your anchor to prevent you from even looking at a drink,
yeah, it's not
right?
something I consider. It's
No,
really not something I consider today.
yeah, exactly. I know that, I have had my experience with people both in my family and outside of my family that have been addicted to drugs or even cigarette smoking or even addicted to too much sex or whatever it might be. But the
Yeah,
thing is when they recover, if they don't have music, they kind of slide back into it somehow. Well, at least that's just what I've seen. I mean, I'm sure that
yeah,
there are other creative outlets that people can take ownership over and prevent going back into the downward spiral. But for you, it's probably just in your DNA that it would be music,
yes.
you know? So,
No, I picture
yeah,
the legal scales, and on the legal scales, I picture a bottle of alcohol on one scale, and
yes,
everything else in life that you could dream of having and wanting and enjoying, and it's
yes.
one or the other. You know, it's one or the other, and I've made one choice.
Nice. Very nice. Well, I think we're about to be headed to another break. Literally, I just saw the warning, 2 minutes to break. So,
Yeah.
I'm gonna now lead off into our next commercial break, and show Autism Speaks, the website, and browse through it so people can see how to
Good.
donate and participate. And then I'm gonna open up the next section with another one of your songs, and we want to talk about the story of your son and his life with autism. Okay?
Okay, you
All
got
right.
it.
So, I'm sorry, let's say it again.
I said you got it.
All right, cool. All right. Also, I will make sure that I turn on the light. That's the brilliance of the commercial break. So when we come back, I'll be in a bright room again. All right. That all being said, please stay tuned right here on talkradio.nyc and on our social media. We'll be back in a few.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Leaves on the trees, more than the seconds passing by. I love you more than the sand on the beach, more than the ocean cool and blue, more than my arms could ever reach. I love you more, I love you more than the kisses on a cheek, more than the rise of Mercury, more than my heart could ever be. I love you more.
I would have loved to play more, but we're also running on our own time clock. And yes, I'm in a bright room again. That all being said, I don't remember what you said. I know it was a danceable track when we were going to play it during our first show together, but What was the impetus for that song in particular? Was it your son or your daughter or both of them? Or your wife even? Oh, you have to unmute first. Okay. Unmute so that I can hear you. Okay. Unmute your microphone. No problem. Okay, was that your son or daughter?
That's my granddaughter.
Ah, very
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. Can you see that?
Yes,
She's
yes.
adorable. So my daughter Lauren had my granddaughter Harper. In the very beginning of that song, my daughter, I have my daughter begin the song by whispering, "I love you," and I say back, "No, my dear, let me make it clear. I love you more." And then it goes into that upbeat tempo. And
Yes.
I sing about more than the leaves on the trees. And my daughter is, she's a social worker, but she also creates artwork. She presses flowers. And the name of her company is Lauren Believes, Believes, Leaves, yes. It's very cute play on words. And I wrote that lyric in there just for her. And what's really great is my 4-year-old granddaughter can sing that song from beginning to end. And of the hundreds of thousands of streams that I have on there, I'm thinking about 10,000 of them are from my granddaughter asking for the song. And
That is
when I
cool.
leave her, um, I say, Harper, I love you. And she says, I love you more. But she says it's singing. I
That
love
is
you
cool.
more. Yeah, it's
So
really
is
great.
that part of an actual EP or album, or is it just individual tracks that you've placed on
No, I
Spotify?
just have a handful of tracks up there right now. We're going to be able to put together an EP probably in the next 5, 6 months, and we have a couple more songs coming out.
Very
Um,
nice.
yeah, I'm very excited about them. It's great. It's fun. I don't the music doesn't get done automatically, and I'm still doing other things in my life. I still have my company, and I've had some health challenges I mentioned before, and I still
Right.
see my son all the time. So there's plenty of responsibilities in life, but the music is what is probably the most rewarding. And of course, I did take out the time to write this book.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so that was a big time-consuming thing too. But I enjoyed that. That was very cathartic. Very
Well,
cathartic.
I do remember you were saying you actually have a soundtrack based on the book, based on the 12 steps or the 12 chapters.
Yes, I mean
Y-
it's 12 chapters, and each chapter begins with a song. And I recently went into the studio, and it begins with just 2 or 3 lines of each of the song, and the song is there to set a tone for the upcoming chapter. And I just sang them very mellow because I'm going to do the audiobook next.
Now, when you do the audiobook, is that also going to feature the song from the artist?
It's going to feature the song me singing the first couple of lines just as it's written in the book.
So you're literally covering it.
Correct.
That's nice. That is
Yeah.
excellent. You mentioned earlier about your son, and I know we talked in the second section about his being diagnosed with autism when he was 2 years old. Was that a challenge for you in managing your sobriety at the same time while uncovering that
I
about your son?
was sober about 5 years, and I had been going to hundreds of meetings every year. Um,
Hmm.
so I did have a strong foundation. I
Good.
remember the day he was diagnosed. I felt as if my wife at that time didn't quite get the severity or the seriousness of the situation. I
Hmm.
remember walking to the car and saying, "We're in trouble here. This is serious." And I also said, I'm going to have to make a lot of money because I knew that we would be able to, if we had a lot of money, we'd be able to get him the best care and the best help to make him the best that he could be. I was having that conversation from the front door of that place to where they said, "We see autism here. It's a clinical subjective diagnosis," but they were right.
Hmm.
To the car across the parking lot, I had that conversation with myself, and it was challenging. Life threw quite a curveball that day. You never know. Life comes at us all, but that one was one of the biggest ones ever.
So how old is he now?
He's 33.
And he's living his life productively, I gather?
So my
Does he?
son works in
Yeah.
an organization called Spectrum Designs. I'm not involved really very much at all with Autism Speaks now. I'm much more involved with Spectrum Designs. Spectrum Designs, um, it employs adults with people, with neurodiverse people, people on the spectrum. It employs them, and they make T-shirts and sweatshirts and hats, embroidery and silk screening, and you can order coffee mugs through them and pens and those types of things. And my son works there. He folds the shirts and he moves the boxes around. They employ about 40 adults with autism right now. I sit on that board. Love giving them love and guidance there and in
Very
business and
nice.
everything.
I
Yeah.
think I actually heard of them on TV recently.
They've been all over the place. They're knocking it out of the ballpark. They were on Kelly Clarkson recently. They were a part of a big autism fundraiser at the Beacon Theater in Manhattan recently.
Wow.
Yeah, they do work for companies like Uber and Google and Microsoft. I don't know if you've ever heard of those companies.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
kind of.
yeah, so they're knocking it dead, and it's great because these people, you go in there and it's really a special place. I mean, I would take you for a tour any day of the week, and it's something else to see these people
Wow.
engaged and being productive, and um, it's wonderful. And
The spectrum. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What?
my son works for my son-in-law.
That is very nice.
Yeah,
Keeping it in
it's
the family.
like
But
my
at the
son.
same time, though, you had mentioned when you got the diagnosis and you saw you needed a lot of money, I gather you managed to raise the funds for all the training and and health programs he needed to participate in or development programs.
My son, by the time he was 15 years old, went to Harvard twice economically.
Oh, okay. In other words, that's how much it cost,
Right. For private
and it
tutors and
doubled the
help.
actual
And
cost of tuition.
yeah, we tried everything. We would fly out to California, see specialists there. We tried this, that, and the other thing. We did everything to find a cure or come up with, the best therapists and so on and so forth. And it did make a very big difference. We have few
Nice.
regrets of anything we've ever done with him. And there's very little we would have done differently. Very little. We would almost nothing. And he's a very happy, productive person now who
Very nice.
still limited communication. It still hurts. And, there's a big piece of the book is how, because I did not have much of a relationship with my father, that I really promised having, uh, that I was going to have a very great relationship with my son. And frankly, autism cheats you of that. It's not typical. It's not the same. I mean, I know
Right.
he loves me, but there's no communication, not talking about sports. We're not talking about first dates or driver's licenses or college entrance exams. It stinks. It's not the word I want to use. On that
It's
level,
disappointing.
yeah, it's very painful on that level, but you have other rewards.
There are
Um,
some people I would like to introduce you and your son to, but we can talk about that offline because maybe they could be of some additional help, you
Okay.
know. But the thing that I guess I mean, I have a history of epilepsy, which all of my audience knows, and you can consider that neurodivergent, especially when, now I haven't had a full-blown seizure in 25, maybe, my God, 2005. Yeah, 20, that's about 20 years already. But the thing is that I would have to say that probably there have been some limitations imposed upon me as a result of, first, the social stigma around it, and second, even some of the things that I may have missed out on as a result of having repetitive seizures and therefore being excluded from certain groups or certain situations. But I guess like what you have experienced with your struggle with alcohol and then the recovery, you just have to make something more innovative out of it to live as best of a life as you've been meant to do with your limitations, you
That's
know.
right.
And I think
Every
that's
day
the
just try to live a little better. Seriously, I mean, it sounds hokey.
no, but
But
it is like a mantra in your
it,
case.
it is. It's just, one day at a time, just live a little better and just put one foot in front of the other and march on.
Now, I guess it sounds like your son was on the spectrum, but much more advanced based on his limitations. Am I correct?
No, no, my son, I look at my son as being a real typical textbook case of autism. But what I feel, I think most other parents would agree with me. There's one thing that runs through 90-something% of these kids and adults is obsessive compulsive disorder. He's very OCD-like. If we go to a restaurant and he obsesses over the Pellegrino bottle becoming empty. He can't stand the glass not to be filled all the way to the brim. And this is completely distracting him from experiencing everything else in life because that's all he's obsessing on. So he still very much has that. And he has limited language. Still doesn't even cross the street with the way you and I would cross the street, being so aware of the cars and so on and so forth. His awareness level, is he really looking? Is he really looking? You're getting, no matter, spend hours and hours and hours, working on those skills with him. But we can take him to a restaurant and he doesn't yell or yelp or flap his hands. He acts pretty appropriately, and he can order his food that he wants, but he wants the same food at the same restaurant all the time. And as much as we try to get him to mix it up, and he'll mix it up in different restaurants, but if the first time he has that meal at that restaurant, it's 99% sure that's what he's going to eat there the next 20, 40 times he eats at that restaurant.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's the way it is. And you pick and choose your battles. That's what he's going to have. That's what he's going to have. It's fine.
Does he know about your story and your history?
No, I don't think he would be really
Able to
take that
process
in.
it?
I don't think he would process that the way you and I would process it necessarily.
Okay.
He's never seen me drunk. Neither one of my kids have ever seen
Good.
me drunk, and that's a gift.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And with your gift of making music, every time, even if that compels you to drink, you just write a new song.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we're about to take our final break, and then when we return, I'd like to talk more about, I guess, your future plans with your son, with your music, with your book. You
Okay.
did mention you're doing an audiobook, and at the same time, Men on the Move. Learn more about your whole business. And, I offer the platform for people to promote their business when they want to. So
Thank you.
if you want to talk about it in any way after the next section begins, well, we'll do just that. All right.
Okay.
So everybody, please stay tuned right here as, again, we are echoing the first episode that John and I did together. We're talking about From Sobriety to Success right here on Frank About Health on talkradio.nyc and on all of our social media. We will be back in a few.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Ready to serve up success with a splash? Hi, I'm Bruce Kramer, a.k.a. the Corporate Cockroach.
I'm the Renaissance woman, Angie Snowball.
And I'm your strategy doctor, Dr. Navtej Desange, inviting you to serving up success with a splash.
Join us as we shake things up with real talk and real strategies centered around awareness, action, and accountability.
And yes, there really is a cocktail involved. Please join us and sip your way to success.
Serving up success with a splash, where wisdom meets happy hours. Cheers!
Cheers.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. Overall, over the last two episodes with John Beyer, we've had a chance to see his struggles as a child and through middle school and high school and meeting the love of his life and having become a dropout in college because the alcohol was just consuming him, and then being, like I said, grounded with the love of his life, coming up with beautiful children, Lauren and his son. What was your son's name again? Uh, unmute.
Gregory.
Gregory. I almost said Greg, but I was close. So
That's all right. You can
there
call
we
him.
go. And then of course the whole aspect of his music and writing this book, Live a Little Better. He had mentioned earlier that he is going to be doing the audiobook version of it, and probably release a soundtrack to the titles of the book as a result of the songs that are used by traditional artists that have superstar messages behind those songs. I'm now calling this segment about building your new identity, which you've already done, and I gather you're still on the road. We all are on the road each day. So other than doing the audiobook and continuing to participate in Autism Speaks, or rather with your son's business,
SpectrumDesigns.org, yeah.
SpectrumDesigns.org, I guess what really drives you, quote unquote, is Men on the Move. That's giving you your livelihood to maintain all of these incidentals to preserve the new identity that you've developed over time, correct?
That's right. Men on the Move has enabled me. It's given me the vehicle, albeit a moving truck. It's given me the vehicle to do all these things. So yeah, I built from scratch. I built quite a little empire with that. I think probably the largest independently owned first generation moving company on Long Island. There are other ones, but they inherited from their dad and maybe bigger than my company. But yeah, I'm kind of proud of that because it was from scratch and I did it. And in the last 15 years or so, I really broke off and started becoming a developer of self-storage facilities, which made me a lot of money. And I didn't want the book to be about that. Yes, I have become, it is a Live a Little Better is a rags to riches story, but it's really about survival and it's meant to inspire people. It's almost an aside, yes. And what I've discovered through all that is really just wanting to give back everything that I've ever had and learned. And now my wife and I are trying to figure out how to give money away, and we created the Beyer Family Foundation, and we're trying to be generous as, uh, going forward with autism and other agencies too. And I want to teach people about the function of money because people don't understand the function of money and interest. And you could have a master's in philosophy and not have a goddamn clue about how money works. And that's a shame because that robs you. I think if that was taught better in this country, all boats would rise if that was really specified in our education system. I hate when people are overextending themselves and so on and so forth. But yeah, Men on the Move, it was one truck. We have 28 trucks. At one point, we had 4 self-storage facilities. We had 250,000 square feet of self-storage facilities. Right now, I still have 20 some odd trucks. Business is rough, actually, in the moving business these days because of interest rates and the market being tough. So we're mostly residential movers, but we're more than surviving. And we are developing 2 new self-storage facilities right now. 2 on Long Island, 2 on Long Island and a third in Jersey. So it's actually 3 new facilities that'll be coming into being in the next year and by 2026. And I'm excited about those. Those are creative processes too, because you're taking an old building and making it pretty or from the ground up, and there are aesthetics involved there, and I enjoy doing that.
Excellent.
And it's enabled me to pursue my music and help out in the autism world. And, like I said, I'm on the board of Spectrum Designs and I do what I can there. I was also on the board for Core Maria Retreat House, which is out in Sag Harbor, which is a retreat house that helps people with alcoholism and all kinds of issues. And I enjoyed that experience working with the nuns and the staff there out at this retreat house. The place saved lives. Cor Maria Retreat House is really a special place. I've been going there since for over 39 years. So yeah,
Nice.
it's really a
So
remarkable place.
do you think that you yourself have slowly become an advocate in your own right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my wife and I are go-to people. We don't, uh, 2 weeks doesn't go by where we don't get a phone call from a family that wants to know about what did you do when this happened with your son? What did you do when it happened? And now it's about when people, because we're older, people want to know what to do with their kid when they've aged out of the school system. We
Mm,
call it the safety net of 21 is after 21, it's gone. And
right.
that's what happened with Greg. We wound up working at Spectrum Designs and we got him a house and it's very complicated to put all those pieces together. It's the most challenging thing I ever did in my life. My
Mm,
wife and I ever accomplished was getting a residence for my son, putting the pieces together with the caretakers and the other kids that live in the house with the other parents was the most challenging thing we've ever done. And I've faced some challenges. And that was a toughie, but he lives 2 miles away from me, 3 miles away from me by design. My daughter lives 2 miles away from me. My son can walk to my daughter's house. It's also we're close and we can see each other and stay physically close, which helps you
that
stay
is nice.
emotionally close. Yeah.
Now, you did say you were going to be undergoing a procedure.
Yeah, I continue to have health problems. I haven't touched on it, but I had colon cancer 8 years ago, and it spread to my liver 4.5 years later. So 3.5 years ago, I had 2/3 of my liver taken out, and had chemo directly into my liver, high concentrated chemo for 6 months, and it turns out that wound up damaging me 3 years later. 3.5 years later, my liver is not doing well, and I was at doctor's today, and I'm having a procedure done, and there's a probability that I'm going to be needing a liver transplant in the coming year or
Wow.
two or something like that. So, but
Are
I'm
you
okay
already on the
today.
donor registry?
Not just yet. I'm going to have this procedure and see how this procedure, it's called a shunt, and they're going to circumvent the blood flow and see how that comes out. Depending on how that turns out, we'll see that, and I'll probably go on a donor list after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So just more challenges.
it's more challenges, but I feel like you're going to get through it. I just something
Yeah.
about the way you're presenting yourself. I just feel like that there's an inner confidence that's going to carry you through it.
Well, I got to tell you something. My wife and I went to Alaska 2 years ago, and the air was so clean, and the water, you would drink the water out of the creek. And I said, wow, it's interesting. It's so beautiful, so clean and so pure. And I look up the life expectancy there, and it's only 73 or 74 years old. And nationally, it's about 78. And
Right.
I look up on Long Island. Long Island is 82. And the difference being is the people in Alaska do not have access to the healthcare that we have, let's say, in the tri-state area. We're very fortunate. And so you have to access that healthcare. The finer institutions, Sloan Kettering and NYU and Mount Sinai, which is where I was today, or just
Nice.
earlier today. Yeah. So we're very fortunate to be where we are. And as very imperfect as our healthcare system is, it still has a lot of merit to be had for it too.
Well, I know that my documentary has been released at this point, and it shows the history of Frank About Health and where it came from an epilepsy a stigma removal story all the way to an advocacy platform. So I've renamed the company Healthy Media to hold all of my intellectual property, which includes this show and so forth and so on. But those hospital systems you mentioned, especially NYU Langone, I am a firm believer in the way that they educate, the very implementations they use for treating things like cancer and so forth and so on. So based on what you're telling me you're going to be going through, maybe like I think you mentioned you would want to spend some time in the city. If you come on by, I'd like to talk with you more about all of the
Sure.
advocacy work you're doing with those hospital systems.
Absolutely. I'll buy you lunch. So,
That would be cool.
I would tell you that my next project after Live a Little Better, because this is written out of gratitude. My daughter talked me into writing this book.
Yes.
The next project that I'm working on is it's been underway, and COVID came and it hit a little thing. It's called We. It's a Broadway play. It's a musical. And my
Right.
collaborator, Ben Hay, and I have 20 some odd songs written for this play already. And we have more than an outline. I have characters, I have the whole story, but I don't have dialogue. I still have to write the dialogue. I hit a wall with that. I don't know how to really incorporate the dialogue into it. But that I'm going to be going back to. And We is all about addiction and the fact that the 12 steps of AA are the same 12 steps in every addiction anonymous program, whether it's Cocaine Anonymous, Sex Anonymous, Sexaholics Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, all of them. And all these characters are in the play together, and they interact, and it's fun. And somebody dies, and somebody falls in love, and that's my next project. I'm going to make that go and be off Broadway in the coming years. I want to work
Very
with
good.
Annalee Ashford, the actress. I met her. She's a delightful person. Her husband, Joe Tepper, and I just that's what's going to happen. I'm going to make that happen. That's my next.
I believe you. I believe you. Well, I can't believe here we are, and at the end of our second show together. Overall, I have definitely retooled this show to be about success stories after facing disruption. You are definitely one for the books right here on Frank About Health. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a chance to see my 150th show. John gave me a surprise visit, and we talked about this show as well as everything else that's going on in his future. You already have had a taste of what's going on in my future with this show and with my business model, but we are out there to advocate for all people that are dealing with disruption, whether it's through the healthcare system itself or whether it's the condition that you're carrying and learning to live with, or even if you're an advocate trying to fight on your own podcast, for example. So please continue to watch us, not just on talkradio.nyc and our social media, but we are now available on Apple Podcasts as well. So hopefully out there, you'll get a chance to even hear some of his music as was played on the show, and then go to Spotify or YouTube or Amazon Music or wherever else it's being played. But I thank you, John, for being here today, Jesse behind the scenes for engineering the show. And we will be back next week with another episode. Stay tuned at 6 o'clock for Success with a Splash with Bruce Kramer. And I will see you all next week. Alrighty. Take care. Bye-bye.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift